If love has always felt complicated, just out of reach, or just never seemed to work out, you're not alone. If this is the first time you're tuning into one of my videos, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. But for the newbies, please understand that I may have a different description of what a lone wolf is than what you're used to hearing. Because the lone wolf I describe is one with empathy and compassion, not just for others, but also for themselves. I'm also not just talking about someone who is solely an empath or solely a lone wolf. This is a combo package here. And the defining feature is a healthy balance of the feminine and masculine energies. I'll go into more detail as we move into understanding the struggle of why love and relationships can be so difficult, as they are for many people, but especially for those who relate to the lone wolf empath, because it lives within the harmony of these two energies. Given the lone wolf's empathic side, they are very much in tune with the energy of the world. And this digs deeper than what they can feel in people. It's in everything, all the way down to the quantum field. They're carving their own path in love. And although some may say, oh, isn't everyone carving their own path? No, they're not. Many people are following the cookie cutter path, the life that's been set out for them. The lone wolf doesn't subscribe to mainstream. And instead, they might be seen as a bit of a rebel who goes against conventional lifestyles. If they've ever been married, it may have been reluctantly, hoping that maybe this is the right thing for them to do. But of course, the lone wolf empath knows otherwise as they grow, as they mature, as they empower themselves. At their core, they're typically not someone who subscribes to the tradition of marriage, but they are always in alignment with the stream of energy that they live in, which is why many of them seem to be ahead of their time. And for some, this may even seem to be light years ahead of everyone else, which is why they feel like they're an alien on this planet. They have their own style, their own way of doing things, and they can be quite introverted in their energy. They're rarely the type of person that can extrovert themselves for too long and will only do so out of necessity. They know they are a soul in a human body, not a human body with a soul. As you can imagine, there is an immense amount of personal growth that the lone wolf empath must uncover, which is why it's unlikely that the lone wolf empath will fully come into their power before the age of 40 or 50, and some will take even longer. And this is by no mistake, because wisdom can only be shaped by allowing those sharp edges to be softened. As Krishnamurti says, you must understand the whole of life, not just one part of it. That's why you must read. That's why you must look at the skies, why you must sing, dance, and write poems, and suffer and understand, for all that is life. For those of you that don't know of Jiddu Krishnamurti, he was an Indian philosopher, speaker, writer, and a spiritual figure. And I'd say he was quite the lone wolf himself. As he stated, truth is a pathless land, and advised against following any doctrine, discipline, teacher, or guru, including himself. He emphasized choiceless awareness, psychological inquiry, and freedom from religion, spiritual, and cultural conditioning. So that suffering he speaks of may be true to the lone wolf in these matters of love until they have transcended its meaning and learned the truth for themselves, which is always unwinding and revealing itself. Some may never find love. Others may have many failed love relationships, or one big, never-ending, trailing on lover that will never let go. Oh, and the other possibility of one that never worked out, but somehow still seems to come back from the dead every once in a while. Some lone wolves will give up on family and friends, but finding love still remains a part of their path. Now, perhaps some of you at this point in the video might be saying, no, I have given up on love. I don't seek love anymore. I'm not looking for that. You might say that as a lone wolf empath, you don't crave any connection. But let me remind you that you do. It just might not be in the traditional sense. And of course, it's not in the traditional sense. So the same thing needs to be said for this love that they seek. And if I may digress even more for a moment here to say that I believe our world as a whole doesn't understand what love is, and that we only show what love is based on what we've been taught or shown. The lone wolf empath learns through emotions, through feeling. They feel something that no one's talking about. And that's likely because no one else knows. No one else feels on this same level. And what clouds our vision the most is trauma. The lone wolf empath is no stranger to that path. So let's go through a few key areas to understand this a bit deeper through the lens of trauma. It can be very traumatizing for the lone wolf empath to have never been told, I love you, or to have experiences of what love feels like from a parental figure. As we know, our childhood years are the most fundamental years to lay down this groundwork. Love is a very important emotion for the lone wolf empath, as it is for all humans. It should be that way, but I don't want to be shooting on anyone. I can only speak for myself. And it's often the void that they end up trying to fill for many years to come. What complicates this is that eventually they come to separate themselves from the people who are supposed to teach them about this from the onset. Part of carving their own path is this separation. This is one of the main differences between a lone wolf and a lone wolf empath. The lone wolf is mainly only out for themselves. They can be cold and heartless because they live with resentment and anger, bitterness, self-pity. It's very important that I make this distinction again, that the empathy component is very important. As I've made this distinction before about the empathy not coming from a toxic place, which it likely has been on the path that they've walked for 40 plus years, and they've learned that taking in strays is not always the wisest thing to do. Feeling sorry for people is one thing. Feeling compassion for them is another. If you feel sorry for someone and take them on as a lover, this is toxic empathy. But if you feel compassion for them, then you know that being their lover may not be the best thing for either of you. This is where we get into that wounded female energy and the wounded masculine energy, which is where the empowered lone wolf empath emerges from. 3 things to consider in this aspect here. First is hyper-independence as a trauma response. When love has hurt you in the past, your brain learns to equate connection with pain. You tell yourself, you don't need anyone. That's not true. You just don't trust easily. This is where the masculine energy shows up. I don't need anyone. I can do it all myself. I can't trust anyone. And I can only rely on myself at this point. And that may be very well and true. However, there needs to be some growth beyond that wounded masculine energy. But in the meantime, this is a natural and normal place to be. Many of us have had to go through this phase before we can see it through to the other side. The second is the fear of being misunderstood. You spent your whole life feeling different in some way, and you may not have always been able to put your finger on it. And even in love, something always felt different. So this is where the wounded feminine energy steps in. Not having any boundaries, people pleasing, finding yourself compromised in your own values and beliefs just to be loved. You lose yourself. You allow yourself to be lost in someone else. This is enmeshment. This is codependency. This is toxic empathy. When you enable unhealthy behaviors in someone else because you feel sorry for them, or you see they're different, but not in the same way that you are, in a misunderstood way, still the same, and your view of unconditional love is also thwarted because unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance for unhealthy behavior. I can love you, but I don't have to be in a relationship with you. But as noted, the need to fit in, to be loved, to be seen, to be heard gets in the way of finding love that actually meets this need for you, as you're still trying to find out what love even is. And so you find yourself meeting this need from a wounded place instead. The third thing is emotional burnout and overgiving. You love deeply, but you've been conditioned to put others first. You give too much, then you resent it, then you retreat into solitude or isolation. Now, this is a mix of both the unhealed masculine and feminine colliding terribly. Overworking, emotional withholding, poor boundaries, being controlling, codependency. If you struggle with those things, you can check out my other videos on boundaries and codependency. Meanwhile, you may have healed all of those areas that I spoke of and still feel as though something is missing. And here's 4 reasons why. 1, you love in a way that people don't understand. I saw a quote once that made me stop in my tracks, and it said, "Imagine being loved in the same way that you love." And I was like, wow, imagine that. Imagine that I'm over here about to turn 49 years old this year, and I haven't experienced that yet. Now, how can you have such a strong capacity for love if you were never given examples or role models for how that was supposed to look like? And in my opinion, for the lone wolf empath, it is innately already instilled in you, but you just don't have an outlet for it or a way to express it. I expressed it through music and dance, and then I unhealthily expressed it through relationships with people. And when you have such a strong capacity for love, you're going to end up letting down your guard. You might settle. You might compromise your needs, landing yourself in a relationship with someone who lacks the capacity for love and compassion. You might think it's your responsibility to teach someone. The truth is, you've come to a point in your life where you're not going to settle for surface level relationships now. In your empowered lone wolf energy state, you refuse to betray yourself just to keep someone else around. That's not a flaw. That's wisdom. An empowered lone wolf empath takes decades to get to this truth of what love really is, because there's so many examples of what it is not that they have to filter through all of that. And if you'd like to comment specifically on that point, please do so. Number 2, you carry both masculine and feminine energy. And guess what? We all do. But to what extent have people learned how to balance these 2 things? For one, truly to be in the fully empowered energy of a lone wolf empath, one must learn how to find that middle path, the balance of yin and yang. The empath in you is soft, intuitive, deeply compassionate. That's your feminine energy. The lone wolf in you is strong, independent, protective. That's your masculine energy. Most people lean heavily into one or the other, but you embody both. That balance makes love feel complicated because you don't need someone to complete you. You need someone who you can meet where you are and who is also able to balance both. To be out of balance means you're hyper independent instead of interdependent. You're always controlling instead of allowing in that non-attachment kind of way. You set boundaries instead of putting up walls or letting people walk all over you. This is why we feel as though something is missing, because as we've learned, to balance those 2 energies is still in conflict with what the rest of the world is doing, which is why it brings us to number 3. You're not afraid to walk alone. As a result of holding this balance, you're still a super sensitive person, okay? Like, let's not forget about that. Even though I did a video called The Stoic Empath, this simply reminds us of what we are in control of and what we are not, and being able to embody that freedom of choice. We are in control of our own energy. And if someone else is off in a way, it's going to create some level of anxiety in us. And anxiety isn't necessarily a bad thing because, like all feelings, they are information. And before, that wounded lone wolf empath would have tried to heal that person so they could heal their own energy. Now we know that energy is not our own. And so we can feel that we've taken it on, and then we decide to place ourselves outside of it instead of walking into it. So when we place ourselves outside of it, that means we're often alone. Now, most people will fear loneliness and will stay in relationships that don't serve them just to avoid it. But you'd rather be alone than in the wrong company. That self-sufficiency can intimidate people who expect love to look like dependency. But again, that's their misunderstanding, not your problem. And the fourth reason why something always seems to be missing, and let's face it, as much as you can be so self-sufficient and on your own, there will be moments that you will stop and question this need for love. But the truth is that you love on your own terms. Instead of trying to fit into society's idea of love, the values and beliefs of what love is, attachment, constant validation, or even sacrifice, those things speak to the wounded feminine wolf in you. And you're over it. You've healed the wounds and embraced the healed feminine energy that possess surrender, flow, stillness, and creativity. There might even be a process of grieving what you once thought the truth of love to be. But now in your empowered state, you have the freedom to love deeply, but without losing yourself. Now, something that's just come to mind is the wounded lone wolf empath will attract all sorts of lovers. But what ends up happening as she becomes empowered? There are trails of lovers from her past that may still linger until one day there are none. And that's when it happens. Love isn't about possession. It's about presence. And very few people can hold a presence. Most will be enamored by your presence. That's not what we're here for. Loving on your own terms turns into loving yourself and all the work that you've done to get this far. Because remember, the lone wolf empath is not a leader. They don't even want to be a teacher. Although to many people they are, and that's fine, but to a lover, this must not be. The lone wolf empath is still a student, forever learning and growing. The lone wolf empath welcomes someone else who is as curious of a learner as they are, while also very secure with not knowing everything, nor needing to know everything. That is presence. It's like there's always this dance. And most times it's with yourself. Till someone else comes along and knows exactly how to vibrate with the song you both share. And you naturally fall into the same movements with them. There's a very powerful oneness that happens, but one cannot happen without the other. This is creation, and so it must be treated as something sacred, knowing that whatever is being created is only good for as long as it keeps revealing truth, insight, and presence about the meaning of life, which is the same as the meaning of love. For I say that is to be in the present moment on purpose without judgment. The moment judgment enters, creativity has been lost, and so has love. Now let's finish off this video with a few lessons the lone wolf empath would come across on this empowered path towards balancing the yin and yang energies of love. That is creation. That is their entire soul purpose. Keep in mind that love is not transactional. It's an energy exchange. Another quote from Krishnamurti: freedom and love go together. Love is not a reaction. If I love you because you love me, that is mere trade, a thing to be bought in the market. It is not love. To love is not to ask anything in return, not even to feel that you are giving something. And it is only such love that can know freedom. And that's what's rare. It's the giving and receiving, which is known as sharing. Because often judgment arises, remember the judgment, and then the energy becomes unbalanced. There's no more sharing. Now it's comparing, complaining, and condescending. The lone wolf empath is done teaching people about love because they know that's not their responsibility. They're done waiting for people to catch up because everyone is on their own timeline. They also do not respond to people who think they have something to teach them about love. Because of course, everyone is always learning. That's a given. But the level of love they have arrived at is a God view. It's an unspoken word. And instead, it's a felt sense that glides smoothly from one moment to the next. There's nothing that needs to be taught, only things that can be learned. And so with those lessons, they also learn how few people are a match to their energy. May I remind you, this is not always something so great. Wouldn't you love to not have such a distinctive personality as the lone wolf empath who is so sensitive to all things, including love? So the struggle is real. And it's all part of the path to balancing these two wolves: female victim, neediness, codependency, into the healed feminine, radiance, ease, and unconditional love, along with releasing the wounded masculine dominance, controlling, criticizing, and avoiding, to align with a healed masculine energy of confidence, inner strength, courage, discipline, and stability. For the lone wolf empath, embracing the healed masculine traits, whether you're a man or a woman, is where the challenge in understanding what love is all about. The biggest challenge is also in realizing that although you are a conscious being, the majority of other people are not. And the challenge is first to realize that. And the second challenge is to realize that it's not your responsibility to wake anyone else up. What is your responsibility and what will be your challenge is to not allow those people's pre-programmed and conditioned views about love to influence you. So if you're looking for that special someone to change your life, then look no further than in the mirror. Don't believe in another person to make you happy. That's an illusion. You are all you need. To quote Krishnamurti one last time, love will arise in your heart when you have no barrier between yourself and another, when you meet and observe people without judging them. If this video spoke to you, let me know in the comments. And if you want more videos like this, hit that subscribe button.